Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ramble Rousing, the only MTG show that sacks a creature for 2 colorless mana. I am a simple member of the Orzhov Syndicate, Ethan, bringing with me another topic in the world of Magic. Today is the day I finally sat down and decided to make this video. I'm super excited to get into my deck tech for Teysa Karlov. Teysa was the first deck that I built from scratch, not from a precon, and I've been playing her for as long as I've gotten back into Magic. Now that I'm close to the 1 year mark of hopping back into the game, it seemed to be a good time to make my first deck tech video. So without further ado, let's talk Teysa. A few months ago, I finished my primer for my Teysa deck on Moxfield, link in the description. I'll use the same general outline for this video that I did for my primer, but I would still love and appreciate it if you went and checked out my Moxfield primer. There are a lot of things that I will not mention in this video that are included in the primer, like card replacements, upgrades, explanations on decision making. So I would really appreciate it if you go check it out and leave a like on the deck. With that said, we should begin by beginning, so starting at the grand summary of my Teysa deck. Teysa is an aristocrats deck, meaning you'll want to be sacrificing your own creatures to get some sort of payoff when they die. With Teysa's effect, any of your permanence effects that trigger on a creature death will trigger an additional time. The number 1 win condition in this deck is going to be playing a permanent that deals damage whenever a creature dies, then throwing as many of your own creatures into the fire as you can to trigger as much damage as possible. Hopefully you wipe out all of your opponents in one go, because if you don't, you are certainly the next target at the table. I split the Aristocrats engine into 3 different parts: sack fodder, sack outlets, and death payoffs. Sack fodder are any creatures you are willing to kill. Ideally, we will want these creatures to have a death trigger that creates more creatures for a 2-for-1, or with Teysa, a 3-for-1 advantage. Most tokens also fall under the same category, as long as the payoff that you're using doesn't specify non-token. So remember that tokens do trigger any dying effects, as they do go to the graveyard before they cease to exist. Sack outlets are any permanents that allow you to kill your own creatures, basically anything that has an activation cost of sacrifice a creature. Most of the cards that I include allow you to sacrifice a creature for free at instant speed, which is ideally what you want to aim for. Death payoffs are any permanent that has an effect whenever a creature dies. This can range from creating more creatures, to dealing damage, to drawing cards, but without a death payoff, you're just kind of killing your creatures for the love of the game, so you'll want one of these on the board at all times so you can get some value. So let's break these 3 categories down even more. I find that everyone has their personal favorite sack fodder card. At a high level, there's not much of a difference between an Infestation Sage and a Doomed Traveler, unless you really care about your color identity. As long as you choose a creature card that creates more tokens on its death, then you're basically set. My deck also likes to include 2 cards that can easily recur themselves when they die, and there are a bunch of those out there. These are also a great include, especially when you want to be killing off creatures multiple times. I will take a second to highlight Elenda the Dusk Rose. This card gets bigger whenever a creature dies. Then when she dies, she creates a buttload of vampire tokens, and reminder that both of these effects are doubled by Teysa's ability. So right now, Elenda is just the best sack fodder card in this entire deck, and it's not even close. Moving on to my sack outlets. The sack outlets that I have are the usual suspects. Skull Clamp is still the best by far. With Teysa, you get to draw 4 cards on a Skull Clamp death, which is like an actual war crime, for 1 mana. It's just a really, really good classic Aristocrats card. Ashnod's Altar is great ramp in this deck that doesn't really run a lot of ramp, so it's always good to have. And then Yahenni is my personal favorite creature sack outlet, because its sacking allows Yahenni to become indestructible, making it much harder to remove. And both Ashnod's and Yahenni and a lot of the other sack outlets are great because they can sack at instant speed, which is ideal. However, my number 1 most favorite sack outlet in this deck is Martyr's Cause. This card can sack a creature to prevent damage from a source to any target. This card gives you absolute control over how the game plays out while it's on the field. You can decide what players and permanents take damage at instant speed. So if you don't like how combat damage is being dealt, if you don't like how a spell is dealing damage to a creature, just kill off a few creatures and you can just change the outcome. I don't think I can express in this video how insane this card is. Just play it for yourselves in any sort of Aristocrats deck or any deck that you wish. Play it, let me know in the comments how it feels. I just really love this card and enjoy having it on the field. So moving right along to sack payoffs, there are a slew of Blood Artist effects in this deck. So cards that when creatures die, deals damage to opponents. As I mentioned before, this is your win con, so there's a lot of them in this deck. I won't take the time to name them all, but you can go check them out to see every single one that I run. Cards like Midnight Reaper give you card draw just like Skullclamp does on a creature death. Cards like Pitless Plunder give you treasure tokens for ramping. All of these are doubled by Teysa. Generally, you want to have at least one of these payoffs on the field, so that way you can start getting value, and then eventually you'll try to win through some sort of Blood Artist effect. I will give a quick shout out to Sir Conrad the Grim. This card is an aristocrat staple, and is the best Blood Artist effect in this deck since it works whenever a creature enters the graveyard from anywhere, whether it's the battlefield, hand, library. This card is just a monster whenever it's played, it's a monster whenever someone else plays it. It's just a really good card to have in the deck. I also wanted to spend some time to talk about the trademark Infinite Combo in this deck. There are technically a few different ways to pull this combo off, but the main players and cards are still the same. This is a 3-card combo between Pitless Plunder, Ashnod's Altar, and either Reassembling Skeleton or Hildebrand Manderville, or really just any low-cost card that can recur itself. Simply kill the Skeleton or Hildebrand with Ashnod's Altar, which floats you 2 mana, and creates a treasure token from Pitless Plunder. Then use that mana to resummon your sacked creature for infinite death triggers and infinite colorless mana. With all the tutors in this deck, this combo isn't super hard to fetch for. With that said, I generally don't like pulling this combo in a casual setting, but if you're playing to win, or if you're playing with something on the line, this is an easy way to get a win con onto the battlefield. So next I wanted to highlight a few of my favorite key cards that I haven't gotten the chance to mention yet. Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier, is an all-in-one card that works as both a sack outlet and a payoff, and cards that can do both are great in this deck. Just some friendly hints. Teysa will cause Sephiroth's trigger to trigger twice on a creature death, meaning that if you have 2 creatures die, you'll be able to flip Sephiroth since 4 triggers go on the stack. I also wanted to give a reminder that Sephiroth's emblem is not doubled by Teysa, since Teysa's ability only works on permanents, and emblems don't count as permanents. However, having an everlasting Blood Artist effect on your board or on your side is just well worth the price for Sephiroth. I have noticed that whenever Sephiroth gets summoned, it's immediately the target, it turns heads, it's going to make you stand out, so you have to be careful whenever you get Sephiroth onto the board. Next up is Teysa, Orzhov Scion, the card that actually just does everything. It's a token creation, it's a sack outlet, it's spot removal, all in one card. Both of her abilities work with token creatures as well, so if you have black tokens or white tokens, those can be used to feed her abilities, which are really, really great. Just know that this card, it might not seem much on the surface, but it is an incredible bomb for this deck. It's very, very strong, and I highly recommend if you're tutoring anything, Teysa is a great tutor in the Teysa deck. Who would have thought? Endrick Sar, Master Breeder, is the best bang for your buck token creator. The only downside is how expensive it is. At worst, you cast Endrick for 5 mana, then a 1 mana creature on turn 6 to make 1 Thrall. However, the best case scenario for this card is you just get a free win, right? You can create so many Thralls in 1 turn just by casting creatures, and then you can sack them all for death triggers, and sack the creature that you summon for death triggers. It just can get so many death triggers on the board at one time. Just remember to sack your Thralls before casting another creature, so that way you don't activate Endrick's last ability, causing him to sacrifice himself. And if you haven't checked out my first Ramble Rousing, you should first go check it out after you finish this video. You might have missed my love for Aetherios, God of the Passage. Anytime a creature dies, you can ask a target player to pay 3 life or return that creature to your hand. Teysa allows you to double this trigger, which means you can ask a player to pay 6 life in total, 2 sets of 3, or return a dying creature to your hand. You can also kind of get a little funky with it, right, and target 2 different players with each trigger to have each of them pay 3 or return the card to your hand. And you can play a little mind game where if one person pays, then the other person doesn't, you still get the card back, and then one player is down 3 health. So it's just a lot of fun overall. If you're playing Orzhov Aristocrats, highly recommend putting an Aetherios into your deck. Alright, next up I wanted to talk about budget cutting. This deck is expensive, and as my pet deck, I kind of built it that way, put all the good cards, a lot of good printings, expensive printings in there. But Teysa doesn't have to be. There are a lot of budget replacements that I wanted to talk about. When I talk about these replacements, I'm going to try to give a 1-for-1 trade for cards that have similar effects. So trading a tutor for a tutor, or a sack outlet for a sack outlet, things like that. So let's tackle the game changers first, since they're generally the most expensive. Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor can be replaced by Diabolic Tutor and Beseech the Queen. You can pay 1 and a black more to cast Diabolic Tutor to pay $49 less on a Demonic Tutor, which is well worth the price. Beseech the Queen is my sleeper pick for a tutor effect. If you play this card on curve for 3 black mana, you can tutor Sephiroth. Enough said. Teysa is built to focus on cheap spells, so any outlet, payoff, or fodder that you need to find can easily be fished for with Beseech the Queen at 3 mana. And it only gets better the later you get in the game, since the more lands you have, the higher CMC you can fetch with Beseech the Queen. Smothering Tithe is pretty expensive in both mana and dollars as a ramp card. There are a lot of cheap ramp cards that can kind of replace this effect. Orzhov Signet would be my first choice, but you can play any mana rock or any ramp card that you like in Orzhov colors to fit this spot. Sephiroth is a pretty mechanically unique card. If I were to replace it, I would go with Umbral Caller Zealot. It's a good sack outlet that can also set up your next draws. It's nowhere near as useful as Sephiroth, but it is also about $30 cheaper, which I think is nice. Both token doublers in this deck are also on the higher end. You can replace either Exalted Sunborn or Elspeth Stormslayer with the other Elspeth, the Sun's Champion. This Elspeth card pluses 1 to create 3 creature tokens, which I think is a great budget rate in place of token doublers. Really any card that can create tokens as a sack fodder is a good enough replacement for this spot, but I like Elspeth Sun's Champion as a good budget pick. Grave Pack can be replaced by Solthera the Super Void. Functionally, the cards work differently. Solthera works more like a necromantic selection than a true Grave Pack, but if you're looking for budget, then this card can work. You just have to be careful, obviously, with killing so many creatures that one player no longer has any creatures. The other option that you could put in place for a Grave Pack is a board wipe. So Day of Judgment is my budget pick for a board wipe that I don't already have within this deck, but any good old board wipe will do. And with that, there is the deck tech. Since this is geared more towards beginners, there are a lot of other high-level thoughts that I've decided to cut from this video. Maybe in the future, if people are actually interested, I could make a video with some intermediate tricks, or some thoughts on maybe some card selection, stuff like that. Once again, I highly recommend checking out my written primer on Moxfield that has all of my thoughts, including card replacements, testing new cards, card selection. It just has it all. I just put everything, all of my thoughts onto the page there. And while you're there, you could actually leave a like on that deck. I spent a lot of time writing the primer and creating the deck list, and I still update it to this day. So it's my little baby, and I would love if you guys would give it a like. And while you're giving likes, you should also leave a like on this video, subscribe, give me your thoughts on Teysa. How do you feel about Teysa? It's one of the most popular Orzhov commanders out there. So let me know in the comments what you think about it. Start a conversation with other people. Go make a Teysa deck. I encourage you. I love watching people play Teysa. And with that, I will leave you with thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.